Welcome to the All Trades Jack channel. I am Reaction Jackson, and tonight I am reacting to Doctor Who Season 2, Episode 4, Lucky Day. And boy, this is a cool episode, but it's a weird one. We're going to have a lot of things to talk about, and I feel like I've got to throw it right out. Obviously, these things are spoilered throughout, but this one's going to be heavy spoilers because I'm going to start front-loaded. I think all of the best bits are kind of towards the end of the episode. So that's mainly what I want to talk about. I'm going to kind of go somewhat in order because that's how I write my notes. I'm watching the show and I'm taking notes as I go along. So I may kind of go through things in a little bit of an order, but don't be surprised if I jump all over the place. First of all, it is Dr. Light. We get Doctor at the beginning, we get Doctor at the end, we get a couple of flashbacks to the Doctor in the middle, or kind of in the first act mostly, but we don't see much of the Doctor, and we see virtually no Belinda in this episode, which is going to be a really big down for me right now, because we have a very short season and not much time to get to know Belinda, so I'm kind of bummed that this happened, especially since her intro got so rushed. You know, Ruby starts off at a home story, you know, and we get to see Ruby's home and all of that other stuff. Just like Rose started with a home story and we got to see her home life and everything. Same way with Donna. Same way with Martha. She got taken to the moon, but she's still in her hospital with her coworkers in her element doing her thing. You know, even in that instance, there's still an element to we get to see this person being themselves in their own life. We've never seen Belinda in her life, really. We got a couple of scenes at the beginning of Robot Revolution, and then we sped right along and got off to the adventure. And we haven't seen her home life. And since returning home is an impossibility for her, we're not going to see much of her home life. So if we were going to be getting a companion-heavy Dr. Light episode, I really would have loved if it was a Belinda-centric episode. So right out of the gate, that kind of put me off, but I knew it was coming. I saw the trailer last week. I knew that it was going to be a Ruby episode. I thought that they would both be in it. I said in my last episode, I can't wait to see how these two interact. I guess we're going to have to wait and see. It didn't happen tonight. Those two didn't meet each other. However, if I'm going to give this any points for the fact that it's a Ruby Sunday episode, I will say that this episode gave Ruby the dimensions that she sorely lacked. And a lot of the character flaws that I saw in Ruby are addressed by this episode. Her panic attacks, her anxiety. I know it was kind of self-diagnosis and it was maybe less of a serious look at PTSD, but we did at least talk about the concept of PTSD. Again, this is one of those kid glove moments where they're bringing up heavy concepts but not really dealing with them. Like, oh, here's a cop pointing a gun at a black man, but it's all an illusion, so it didn't really happen. Or Ruby's got PTSD, but does she really? She just kind of said it. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things where I thought it was a cool concept to bring up, and I do think it gives her character depth because she was just the go-with-it companion who just goes with everything and takes everything in stride and gets big information and doesn't react to it very much. So it's nice to see that, you know, she's not as cool and collected as she came across and that she does have chinks in that perfect armor. And that's all good stuff that I would have loved to see last season. This season should be for Belinda. You know, like when Martha came back in Donna's season, it was early on in Donna's season, but Donna had been met previously in The Runaway Bride, so we had a little bit more familiarity with her. And when we got a Martha episode, it was a two-parter with Martha and Donna, so they both got plenty of stuff to do, plenty of screen time. Whereas this, we're getting a Dr. Light that is just on the old companion and developing the old companion while we have not had the chance to meet the new companion yet. So on premise, this episode is doing a lot of things that I wasn't really keen for. And again, timing-wise, like if you watch this as like, if this was a special that came out between seasons, this would be really interesting. But let's get back into what is in the episode and not what the episode could have been, because there's a lot of stuff to like about the episode. When I first saw the shriek, I kind of pointed it out as being Man in Rubber Suit vibes, which, I'm a fan of the classic era. I'm a fan of old Godzilla movies. I grew up on Power Rangers. I like the guy in a rubber suit thing. That's not an insult. When I saw the Shriek, I was like, oh, that's real Man in a Rubber Suit vibes, and I dig that, especially when it looks good. So later on in the episode, when it turns out to actually be men in suits, obviously the real Shriek isn't, but there are guys in suits. I thought that was too funny. Like, I don't know. I don't know if the reveal really works with what it's trying to do, but I thought it was just genuinely funny because I wrote down in my notes, Shriek, man in suit, rubber suit vibe. Yeah. So I can't read my own handwriting. This is a problem. But anyway, I liked the Shriek's design. I like the Shriek as a character concept. I like getting the rules for the Shriek and having it dictate the flow of the episodes throughout, with the antidote and with the tracking and how that plays into the climax of the episode. And yet it's not the monster. It's not the focus. It is the monster of the week technically, but it's not the focus. And yet its rules still dictate the flow of the episode as if it is the monster of the week. So I really dig that. That's something that I really vibe with. It gives me old school Buffy vibes. Where you'd have a bad guy monster who sets up the story, but then it's actually just dressing to tell a high school story. So I kind of really vibe with what they're doing there. It also gives me a lot of Linda vibes. Okay, let's just do a speed round of all the different eras of the show this episode reminds me of. Yes, there's Linda from Love and Monsters. It gave me Love and Monsters vibes. Later in the episode gave me Truth and Consequence vibes with Kate in the unit headquarters, like saying, I'll show you the truth. That gave me the Truth or Consequences vibes from what was it, the Zygon Inversion? I believe it was in the Zygon Inversion. There was obviously the turn of Conrad reminded me of the Runaway Bride, an episode we were just talking about a second ago. It reminded me of, I can't remember his name, but off the top of my head, but Donna's fiance, Lance. There it is. Lance, the whole, him telling Donna, like just dressing her down and saying, oh, it was work getting close to you, and all you want to do is talk about the new flavor of crisps. And it just really tore her down. And that really reminded me of that scene whenever Conrad's doing kind of the same thing to Ruby, talking about her lip gloss. Whether it's crisps or lip gloss, it's weird to grab like that one thing and throw it at them. Like, that's bad. Like, dude, who doesn't like lip gloss and crisps? Get out of here, you fucking freaks. Anyway, there's some other references we'll find throughout. That's the speed round. But I liked Conrad's story. I liked his story in the setup in the first act. I liked the way it was shot. So there's some stuff that I thought was shot really well and some stuff that I thought was shot very weird. So, for instance, when he's discovering the Shriek, I liked that scene. He sees the TARDIS has landed. He's checking it out. He sees a door and hears some sounds, and the door is unlocked, but it was clearly very heavily locked a moment ago. It was chained and padlocked, so someone was trying to keep people out of here. But it's open, and we can kind of assume that it's open because it got sonicked, and the Doctor went in there. And so we, as the audience, know he's hot on the Doctor's trail, and he kind of has that inkling too. And so I liked that. It puts you in the perspective of this guy who they're setting up to be the bad guy, a bad guy who wins a bunch of people over. So the idea of it trying to make you sympathize with him, I really feel. Speaking of that, can we note that this is very similar? This is a Dr. Light episode, and it has a bad guy who we're meant to sympathize with, who we're meant to get a POV with. And isn't that very similar to another Dr. Light episode we just had last season? Not 73 Yards, but the other one. Help me out. Yes, exactly. Dot and Bubble. In Dot and Bubble, we follow Pepperbean, and she's the bad guy, and we don't necessarily know that at the beginning. It's a good litmus test to see when you realize that Lindy Pepperbean's a bad guy, whether or not you realize she's the bad guy. Like, it's an interesting litmus test. But either way, I guess this could be a good litmus test too. I was already not digging Conrad very much when the line, "No, I am your boyfriend," and she's like, "Well, we'll see at the end of the trip," and he's like, "Yep, I'm your boyfriend," and I was like, okay, gross. So that was my only like inkling that I had on Conrad being a bad guy, but I didn't know necessarily that he was the bad guy. But I liked all of that setup for him. Now the setup for their relationship, I mean, it was kind of whirlwind. It was kind of fast, so didn't really bother me that it was fast paced. But there was one part of it that was not fast paced, and it was so unbearable. Is when they're sitting down for their date, and it does this like face to face shot where it shows her face when she's talking, and then it flips over and it shows his face, and then it flips over and it shows her, and it just like goes back and forth on like zoom ins on just their face, dead center, looking right down the camera, and I hated that shot. That was really bad. It reminds me of that scene in the movie. There was a biopic of Queen and Bohemian Rhapsody, and there's this scene when they're talking with Littlefinger. What it does, it keeps changing perspective from each character's face throughout the scene, and it like does these super hyper fast cuts, and it's unnecessary, and there's a whole bunch of them. And that's all I could think about watching this scene. And the very next scene, or maybe like the scene just after it, is them at the bus stop for their big trip. I guess it's the scene after, because there's the scene at Ruby's house. But they're at the bus stop, and it's this crazy fisheye lens that blurs out all the people on the side. And it's very circular the way it's framed up. So like it's very oddly framed in a way that was distracting for me. So between that face-to-face shot and the big fisheye lens shot on something that is objectively uninteresting, two people walking by a bus, I don't know. I'm not sure who directed this episode, but I started questioning their choices on how they were shooting. And again, I liked it at first. There was a couple of things that I said, the shot on the lock pad, I thought that was pretty good stuff. And the shots at the end of the TARDIS and the TARDIS materializing, there's some really good shots in there too, but I really questioned some of these decisions. And maybe that was supposed to be part of the commentary, a skewed perspective or tunnel vision. Like Ruby's got tunnel vision. All she's seeing is his face dead on, or all she's seeing is them and everything else around them is blurred out and she's not paying attention. So maybe, but then that contradicts with the I'm too alert and I'm always paying attention thing, so not really. Directorially, I'm just not really sure about this whole relationship part of the episode. It looked kind of wacky to me. Now, before I go on to talk about that, the turn and everything that happens right after their relationship is developed and everything falls apart, noting on her being too alert, that was a conversation she had with Kate. And Kate said something that I thought was like, I'm not really sure the writers understand what they're saying there, because, I can't remember the exact line. I wish I would have written it down. But one of them says, I think it's Ruby says, I'm paranoid. And Kate says, you're just alert at all times. And I'm like, yeah, that's paranoid. There's this thing, it's called Cooper's color code, where it's supposed to determine your level of stress versus the stress that's incoming, like whether or not you're actually responding with a correct amount of stress to the threat that's coming at you. And the idea is that being in the red is not bad if you have a red level threat, but if you're spending your days in red, that's PTSD. So Ruby, like when she comments back to that, I think I might have PTSD. I think that's interesting, and it makes me question the command leadership in UNIT, because as a former military boy, I can tell you, a lot of higher up military commanders will try to convince they're lower enlisted, that they don't have psychological problems. They don't need to go see the doc, because that gets documented, and that reflects badly on the unit. We don't want to have a unit that's got a bunch of people who are depressed and anxious and suffering from PTSD. So a lot of those higher brass will try to nullify your complaints of stress or anxiety or paranoia. And so the fact that Kate Lethbridge Stewart, the head of a paramilitary organization, has to be schooled on PTSD by Ruby Sunday is troubling to me. I'm worried about their command. I'm worried about their underlings. And especially because, am I seeing fraternizing? I think I am. You said you were alone, but I think I see a glass of something there. Maybe it's wine. And I see Lieutenant Colonel Sexy over there with you. So what's going on there, Kate? I'm really starting. Maybe we should question unit. What's going on over there? What's going on? We're covering up people's mental anguish, and we're fraternizing with the upper enlisted. Shame on you. Shame on you, Kate. And we should talk about the shame on Kate, because she does actually do some bad stuff at the end of the episode. But before that, let's talk about the turn, because the turn is maybe where the episode lost me for a minute there. Like I said, I was already laughing because of the rubber suits thing. I thought that was funny. I legitimately thought that was funny. I wasn't being mirthful. I was legitimately laughing. I thought it was a funny little costume change. But the reveal of "What'd you think, boss?" and that look on his face, the delivery of it, it didn't really sell me. It didn't really sell me very much at all. But I did get taken out of it pretty hard also when he opens up the shirt and his shirt says Think Tank. So he's making this smug face and he busts his shirt open and it says Think Tank. And it's like, your think tank is called Think Tank. That's like if unit was just called Paramilitary Alien People. What are we doing, guy? That's the very best you could come up with is Think Tank? Am I missing something here? Is there a joke? Is the little markings on the insides and outsides, the little underscores and, little greater than signs, does that add to the meaning that I'm missing? Please tell me if I'm missing something obvious, because that just comes off as really silly to me that you would have a think tank called Think Tank, It's like having a corporation called The Corporation, which shows have done that, I think of Prison Break had The Company, I don't know. It's been done, but that was so cheesy. It took me out of it really hard. And it wasn't the only thing that kind of took me out of it, because we have to talk about once more, the references. He's referencing things from previous seasons, and he's referencing things from parts of history. And again, I have to ask, what do the common people of London know about? What does the commoner know? Do we know what Cybermen are? Because he mentions them. Does he just know it because he's gone down the rabbit hole? But he's speaking to millions of followers. Do all of his followers know what Cybermen are? Does the average Londoner know what a Cyberman is? Because if you do, why have we been explaining it to every companion who runs into a Cyberman? Shouldn't they all know? You want the companions to still be audience surrogates who have to be taught about things, but you also want us to believe that modern London knows about these things, except for when you want us to think that they don't know about those things. It's so hard to keep a beat on, who knows what in this frickin' world. And on top of who knows what, I also have to throw in that it's you could have cleaned this up by just mentioning stuff from this era of the show. But you mentioned Sycorax and you mentioned Cybermen and Yetis in the Underground, a classic story. Again, these are good references, but you're telling me that even after Cracks in Time, even after Big Bang 2, even after all the different things that have made people just randomly forget their histories and resets the world's status quo, that we still remember all that stuff. Is it because he's part of this group that digs stuff up? That's the only thing I can think, but I don't know. There's also still the note about whether or not that alienates people who are watching this as season 2. Because again, if this is season 2, what the hell's a Cyberman or a Sycorax? I mean, we know what a Yeti is, so I guess that's something. But this all would have worked. It would have worked better continuity-wise, and it would have worked better storytelling-wise if they would have stuck with examples from the Disney era. And maybe thrown in one random one, like unit-specific stories, like the Yeti. I guess that might work. Just because, yeah, he's digging up stuff, and you could say that he knows these things. But again, I have to wonder, like, he has sold this to millions of people online, so millions of people online must know what these things are. There must be some sort of common consensus about aliens that he's having to cast doubt on it. Like, if that's a movement casting doubt on the existence of aliens, it's a fact now, 100% fact, and everybody knows it. So we don't explain stuff to companions anymore, right? Maybe that's why Belinda was so ready to go, like, even though it's like she didn't want to go, she still took the adventure in stride, and Ruby Sunday took all the adventures in stride. Is it because they all know the status quo of aliens? I don't know. I don't know when that change happened, because I remember in the Capaldi era, it was very specific that people willingly forget. They, like, force themselves to forget. It's like a survival mechanism when we just choose not to remember a lot of that stuff. And there's just been so many times when they've felt the need to explain why something is or is not remembered, that this storyline was weird to me because it hinged on the idea of us all accepting that everyone in London thinks aliens are real and units protecting them. I don't know. It seemed different. And this era might just be different. Unit's got a tower in the middle of the city, so they are more blatant these days. So, I don't know. There's something going on there, and I just think we had a paradigm shift at some point, and I didn't realize it happened, maybe. Maybe this isn't an issue at all, and I missed the memo that aliens are now common knowledge. I'm pretty sure most of the conversation online about this episode is going to center around the online part of the episode, the movement and the disinformation campaign, the hoax, whether or not the guy himself believed it, whether or not he still perpetuated it after knowing otherwise, all that kind of stuff. I think that that's going to be a big talking point, but it's not one I want to engage with too much at this point. I think, honestly, I thought it was done. I think it was done execution-wise, it was done kind of sloppily. And because of that, I don't think it carries too much weight. I think it's kind of a nothing burger. I think there are probably people who are going to be either upset or really praising it, and I don't know. I don't think that it was really much of anything. I think it was interesting. But I don't really know. I think we should have spent more time with it, Again, going back to the idea that these seasons are too short, these episodes are too short, it needed time to develop. There was something there, but the turnaround happened so fast, and they try to get a lot done by showing Trinity Wells and showing the one show and things like that to show you, like, oh yeah, see, this got really big, things are happening, there's a movement, it went to Parliament, this is months, so I get it, like, time is passing, but it would be nice to let the story breathe a little bit and let us, like, get some interactions between characters and not just be fed the plot through, several minutes of this kind of storytelling exposition. And here's the thing. Weaponized lies, doxing, those are real problems in the world. Those are very real problems in the world. And I think it's good that Doctor Who is taking them on. And the way that the Doctor communicates it at the end in his monologue, it's an all-timer Doctor monologue. It's really good. And I do think that is necessary. I worry, though, because Russell T Davies has not exactly been a very good champion for online communities and online spaces. So it's hard to hear these criticisms from Doctor Who right now. just for that reason alone. And I know he didn't write the episode, but he is still the showrunner, so I don't know how much that affects things as far as how much of his vision of internet spaces impacted this story. But I want to hold back on talking about this specifically because they're talking about real people in this story, and it gets a little meta, and sometimes that happens in Doctor Who. But when it gets meta and it crosses the line and points through the camera and speaks to somebody, I like to take my time and not react too quickly. I know I'm Reaction Jackson, but I do still need to let some things process because I don't want to say something that could just add to the noise, and I'm not just saying that because the Doctor called out people who add to the noise in this episode, because as you all may recall, if you've been watching my reactions in the Lux video, I didn't want to talk about the fans too much because that was talking about us. That was the Doctor looked through the camera and spoke to us. So in this situation, the Doctor is once again looking through the camera and speaking to us, not to all of us, but to some of us. And I will say some of us because I don't do us and them. There's only us out here. And some of us have not been very cool. Some of us would weaponize lies. Some of us would dox people online. Some of us would gaslight and catfish people into fake ass relationships so that we can take advantage of them. Some of us do that here in the world. And the Doctor is reaching out and saying something to those people. Now, do I think that's good and useful? Yes. Just like I think it was good and useful to reach out and talk to the fans. Do I think the message worked? Gosh, I just don't know. I think if I was more sold on the episode itself, the speech in isolation would work. But I think the speech against the episode maybe doesn't work. I don't know. I'll have to revisit it. But it does feel like the episode rushed some things and glossed over some things that could be seen as minimizing very complex situations. And I have to take some time to digest all of that. And again, we can talk about all this stuff in the season wrap up, which I said we might do. We're definitely doing a season wrap up. Don't even worry about that. All these things that I'm sitting on, we'll come back and talk about, but these are my reactions, and some of my reactions are not appropriate for YouTube, and some of my reactions just belong in my head and are not appropriate to be even voiced. So, that's just how it has to be. I'm going to leave this one alone for now and move on to the next part of the episode. So I guess we can double back now to Kate, because we were saying before, Kate's been being a bad lady this episode, and, she ratchets it up. She goes full on, Harriet Jones on this thing. She goes full Flydell North on this situation, and, I was scared of her. She was the scariest person in this episode. Like, when she got those eyes, and just started speaking in that higher register, she sounded like a Dalek, man. She sounded scary. She sounded like a monster. I guess when you spend your whole life living with / fighting against monsters, you learn some things. But, oh, man, she was scary. She said, "What'd you say about my daddy?" What? She went off. This was my favorite Kate so far. This is my favorite Kate. And I'll tell you this. This Kate makes me excited to see the unit spinoff, War Between the Land and the Sea. I'm excited to see that if this is the Kate we're getting. Like, heck yeah. Especially if there's maybe some romantic tension between her and Staff Sergeant Sexy. Like, if there's some romantic tension there, but now he's, like, not sure because he's, like, morally upright and she's doing some dark and shady stuff. And oh man, I'm fanficking. I'm fanficking out right now. But you know what? I'm here for it. I'm here for it. If this is the Kate we get in a unit story, I'm here for it. If it's, like, the kind of vanilla Kate that we've gotten in some of her other appearances where she's not like one of the major players. I'm not really here for that. I don't want background Kate. I want this kind of full on, I will do anything to protect my investment, my family's legacy. I will do anything to protect the country like Kate. That's the Kate I want to see. Yeah, she went off in this episode, and I love that she's like not taking accountability for it, because Brigadier Sexy is like, oh, the UN is gonna want, and he doesn't even get to finish his sentence. She cuts him off. She's like, he'll live, and walks away. What? I thought they loved each other. But seriously though, 10 out of 10 for Kate Stewart. She had a full-on Galadriel moment, which I appreciate. She had a full-on River Song moment, which I appreciate. The whole, oh, the doctor's not here. Check your records. You don't know who I am. She did go off, and I am hyping up about that. That was my favorite part of this episode. I really like whatever I rate this episode as. It's going up like 2 or 3 points for Kate alone. This was the best part of the episode by far. Coming out of that scene, though, we have a couple of random things that happen. The hot lady, what was it? Hot taser lady. That's what it is. Hot taser lady. That was another hashtag, and I don't think Doctor Who writers understand how hashtags come about, because I don't think No More Monsters or a hot taser lady would be the hashtags that would come out of this. I don't know. Who am I to say? But I just thought that was a silly one. Also, I have to ask a question to you all about this resolve, as they're all like, hashtag stand with unit. I stand with unit. Do we think that would be the hashtag that come out of this? Really think about it, okay? Suppose you thought that he was telling the truth. Suppose you thought Conrad was telling the truth. And then suppose that you thought, after seeing the video, you knew he was lying. Okay? All right. But do you stand with Unit? You just live streamed Kate going full Galadriel. So whether or not they have guys in rubber suits pretending, his message was they're using fear to control us and hiding things from us. And he did prove that they are hiding things, and she would use fear of his life against this alien that she has chained up to kill him if he stepped out of line. And are they spying? Well, she said forward all video feeds to Conrad's social media, so clearly they have a means to force upload video content onto his social media. So yeah, they're spying too. Like, she did just prove everything he said right, and then psychologically and physically, nearly physically tortured him. I guess in the end, he got bit on because of his own idiocy, but doesn't change the fact that, like, she didn't have control over that monster. She really didn't. Like, it went in slow, but it didn't have to. We watched how fast that thing could move. If it had pounced, Ruby wasn't going to get over there with a taser. Like, I don't know. I don't know that I stand for unit is going to be a hashtag after that specific piece of tape goes out with the wind blowing through Kate's hair and she's giving the mad eyes. And I don't know, man. I don't know. If I saw that, even if I wasn't on that guy's side to begin with, I'd be like, F any 4-letter agency, man. They're all the same. I don't know. All right, let's go out on the end of the episode with the Doctor. Again, like I said, it's an all-time Doctor monologue. I thought it was a really good one. I thought it was really effective. I think it would have been better in a better episode overall, especially if the themes of the episode worked better overall. I think the message would land maybe better than it did, but I thought it was a good scene. I also liked the lighting of the scene, and I liked the shot itself, the angled shots that pitted them against each other, never quite facing each other until they were already right up in each other's faces. I really liked that. I really liked the dim orange lighting. I thought that was really ominous. Like, it ain't red. Like, we ain't fighting. but you know where I stand with you. This ain't the warm, welcoming place. This is like, we're a little bit hostile right now, you know? So I liked that. We're on orange alert. But I liked the things that the doctor said specifically. I liked his use of the word cowards. Because that, if anyone has been watching my Who essays knows, that's one of my favorite words to describe assholes online. Is because you can't just be a blatant asshole online and not be a coward. It's part of the territory. Like, I mean, you can also, I suppose you can just be a general jerk everywhere you go. And I guess good job. Congratulations, you're just a huge asshole. But like most people who are jerks online are jerks because they're online. And I liked that. I liked him pointing that out. I liked him calling him a weakling. Getting past that, though, there are things about this scene that I thought were weird. I'm sure everyone's talking about it, but what is this thing on Conrad's arm? There's no way the bite was that small. What is it? It's not covering the bite, is it? Is it supposed to be like a restraining bolt of some kind? Is it feeding him antitoxin because he's poisoned for life? What is it? Could we have gotten one line of exposition? Of all the kinds of times I complain about there not being exposition, this would, or being exposition where there shouldn't be, this is one of those times where like we got no exposition when we should have had some. Is that a fake arm? I mean, what is it? Like, is it attached at that little metal ring? If so, who funded that? That's wild. What is this? Can somebody tell me what the ring is? Did I miss something? Speaking of what is tech, this isn't in that scene, but just randomly, couple of pieces of tech got brought up in UNIT's archives. They mentioned the time window, which obviously we all saw, but they also mentioned transduction driver or a transduction drive. Does anybody know what that is? I'm not sure that I know what that is. I'm pretty sure that the bubble around the Citadel on Gallifrey, I'm pretty sure the Citadel of the Time Lords has a bubble around it, and that might be called a transduction field. But I would be very surprised if UNIT has a drive that could make a transduction field. So I don't know. Considering Time Window is a weakened version of some Time Lord powers, it wouldn't surprise me if they had some other kind of nerfed Time Lord powers. So who knows? That would be cool. But yeah, so a couple of pieces of tech that I want answers for. If you guys know what that ring around Conrad's arm is, let me know. If you know what a transduction drive is, let me know. Very curious about these things. And then we have the setup for Reality War. It's a two-part setup. One is the doctor telling Conrad you're going to die in this prison and him saying, I reject your reality. And then the fact that Mrs. Flood comes to bust him out. So obviously it's not going to go that way, or at least it may not go that way. He may be changing his reality, which could be the reason that time's all messed up. We're interested in seeing where that goes. So again, this week, Mrs. Flood gets some points for doing something. Now, I am curious if I am just an idiot, because I don't know if we should continue the conversation about who is Mrs. Flood, or did we just get an answer? Because I don't know any character called the governor, and as far as I'm concerned, that was just her making a joke. I'm the governor, I'm giving you a pardon. But I don't know. I could be a total idiot because I haven't seen enough classic to know that there's a Time Lord named the governor. Or maybe one of the background Time Lords in a New Who episode that I haven't read the wiki on, that I haven't read the novelization for. Maybe one of them is called the Governor. Is that a Time Lord sounding name? The Master, the Doctor, the Governor. It could be. I don't know. But it was interesting because she answered who she was. Someone asked her who she was and she answered. And we've all been asking who she was, and this is our first answer. So, other than Mrs. Flood. So, I don't know. Maybe it was just a joke and I'm just reaching. I'm sure other people are reaching, or it's an obvious thing that I'm missing. But either way, I noted that as being something. That's something. A couple of real quick notes before we get out of here. We're going to do some fits. We're going to do some, some music stuff. Let's see the fits. First of all, Kate's big poofy turtleneck thing that she's wearing while she's having wine with Lieutenant Colonel Handsome. That was pretty boss. That was pretty boss lady material right there. I really liked that fit. There was also the fit that Ruby was wearing during the podcast, which kind of made me feel like she was doing a tribute to the Doctor, because she had a kind of peach colored shirt that reminded me of his like orange shirt, and she's wearing this like real slim lined leather jacket, and it's not quite the same tone as his, just like the shirt's not quite the same tone, but it's got a reddish maroonish hue to it. So she's kind of evoking a lot of the Doctor's looks. She's even wearing a bunch of rings, which is something Ncuti is known for. He wears a bunch of rings. His Doctor does. He wears one more ever since Rogue, but even before that, he wore a bunch of rings. So I don't know. I think that there's something interesting going on there with her looks. I feel like her style maybe has changed a little bit since meeting the Doctor. Maybe, I guess you can't have a best friend who's got an infinite wardrobe and not have your fashion senses change a little bit. I mean, I can't even imagine having a friend like that. If anybody out there has a massive infinite wardrobe that wants to kit me out, by all means. But anyway, the music, I don't really have any notes on the music. I didn't catch anything in the music other than I will say that I really liked at the end scene the use of heartbeats and alarms, like alarm bell chimes in the background to help build the tension. I thought that was really cool. I thought the music in that whole scene really worked. I didn't have any notes on the music this time for other places. If there were any musical cues that I missed, I'm sure y'all will let me know. And let's talk about last thing. Let's talk about our predictions, because I already talked about the setup. The setup's an obvious thing. That's not really a prediction. That's obvious that we're setting up the reality war. But I'm going to go one further. We're going to talk about some connective, thematic imagery throughout this season, right? Just based off of the names of the story. Okay, so if we know that Conrad is setting up the reality war, if we know that he's going to be related to the reality war, and we know that the reality war is a 2-part episode that starts with Wish World, we can assume that the one leads into the other. They're going to be relevant to each other. So the reality war is tied in with Wish World. And I'm thinking, what else do we have setting up Wish World? We have a couple of things setting up Reality War now, but we don't have anything really setting up Wish World. And so I was thinking about it. Where do you make a wish? In a wishing well. And we have the well. And how do you make a wish in a well? You throw a coin in it. And who is setting off the reality war and happens to have a lucky coin? Our friend Conrad. So I don't know how, or I don't know why. I don't know the setup. I'm just, as a storyteller, I'm pointing out this connective tissue and predicting that somehow the well and his little coin will be relevant to the reality war, or relevant to Wish World more specifically, which will cause the reality war. Wild out there theory, total stretch, completely bonkers. Yeah, probably. But you know what? I'm out here. That's what I'm here for. I like making these kinds of off-the-wall guesses. And you know what? It turns out some of them aren't as off-the-wall as I thought. You know, I made my prediction last week about the midnight entity and the creature from the well being what's it called? The Not Things from Wild Blue Yonder. And I thought that was a bit of a stretch. But I have seen multiple other people putting out that same connection. And someone pointed out to me that there was even some of the language from Wild Blue Yonder in the set design. Some of that weird hoof print language, the Fens Law, that one. I can't remember if they named the species. I can just remember the numbers, or some of them. I remember Fenn's Law. But anyway, some of those numbers were in the well in the set dressing. So there's more connective tissue to that episode than I even knew. So who knows? Maybe I'm onto something here. You let me know. And in the meantime, we're going to end our review for here. I want to throw out before I leave, though, that y'all may have noticed if you're following the channel that I didn't post a Who SA from the USA this week. I'm taking a little break this week only because we've had a lot of crazy stuff happening around here. Me and my partner are getting ready for a big move, a total lifestyle change, and my cat got sick and I had to take him to the vet, and that's been a whole thing. Y'all put some love in the comments for Ash Catchum. He's doing his absolute best. He's probably sleeping it off somewhere right now. But it's been a rough time over here, and at the end of the day, my goal for this year was to post a video every week. My prop bet was to post a Who SA from the USA every week, but obviously I'm not going to get that one. Oh well, but it's more important to me to maintain my household, my cat, my own mental sanity, and a balance, a life, work, hobby balance. And this is my hobby, so it has to balance out with everything else. But I promise that the videos are coming. The new one will drop early in the week because it's already been started. It was supposed to drop this week and it didn't. I just didn't get around to editing it. So the new one will drop relatively soon. Maybe Tuesday it'll come out. So look out for that. It's a special one. I'm going to be talking about JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. You're going to love it. I'm still going to be talking about Doctor Who, but in the context of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. What's the connection? Well, I guess you're just going to have to come around and find out. But for now, I'm signing off. Have a beautiful night.
Don't forget to subscribe.
Subscribe. What?
Click below to subscribe.
Don't forget to click below to subscribe.
Well, how could I possibly forget that? For goodness sake. You got the message, haven't you?